everyone. I, Muskan Baweja, welcome you all to the third edition of Cineast International Film Festival of India, CIFFI 2021. CIFFI 2021 is the world's first 7 days hybrid film festival organized by educational institutes of two countries. Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education, Delhi NCR, India in association with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. The theme of CIFFI 2021 is Cinematic Rejuvenation, #Cinema 2021. CIFFI is being organized in a hybrid mode to serve as a beneficial platform for beholding the new method of viewing and studying the cinema during the challenging times of the pandemic. The first edition of CIFFI was held in April 2019 and the second edition was organized in the December 2020. It is our privilege to be associated with Deakin University during the previous edition of our film festival as well. It is a proud moment for me to mention here that CIFFI 2021 has received the submission of 3,130 films from 111 countries. CIFFI 2021 brings 21 sessions with 70 experts through 12 panel discussions, one curated session, two master classes, two workshops, two special sessions, and two special segments. Mr. Tigmanshu Dhulia, National Award winner, film director from Bollywood, is the festival ambassador of CIFFI 2021. We are extremely thankful for his constant support. The festival partner of CIFFI 2021 are Cover Drive Production, a Noida-based production house, Vigyan Prasar, the organizer of National Science Film Festival of India, International Science Film Festival of India, and Indian International Science Festival. CMS Vatavaran, Environment and Wildlife Film Festival and Forum. Kids Cinema 2020, an online international children's film festival. Culture Cinema, a concept-based film festival aimed at celebrating world cultures. We Care Film Festival for promoting and exhibiting films on disability. And Delhi International Film Festival. Partner from Australia are Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network and Australia-India Film Practitioners and Researchers Network. Institutional partners are Global Media Educational Council, an international platform of media educators and researchers. Indian Documentary Producers Associations and Association of Documentary Filmmakers. Indian Academy of Shorts, an institution for imparting craftsmanship of filmmaking through small capsules. And New Delhi Film Foundation. Our media partner are APN News, The Policy Times, Hindi Gaurav, and Australia ka Pratham Hindi Samachar Patra. Today, we are screening 45 films. You can watch all the films being screened on our website, ciffi.dme.ac.in. Today, we have gathered here for the panel discussion on the topic Creating and Performing Bollywood Music and Dance in Australia. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Festival Director and Dean DME Media School, to kindly give the opening remarks.
Thank you, Muskan. We have entered the last day of this 7-day film festival. It was really very tight, very hectic, but ultimately we have moved on and there were problems, but then we overcame all those problems and all the sessions, particularly which came to CIFFI courtesy Dr. Vikrant Kishore. 7 sessions he had planned, and this is the 7th session in that series. And all on diverse subjects with the different kind of expertise of the panelists, right from meeting the documentary team and the feature film team and all. So all aspects that yesterday, this Australia, India media, this film council, so that session was brought, which was very enlightening. And this is again something which is close to everybody's heart. The music and dance element is, and otherwise also there's an area of expertise of Dr. Vikrant Kishore also. So I feel that this is going to be a good session, engaging session. And today only we are having the valedictory. So all details have already been provided. So I will not be repeating anything, and I'm looking forward to listening to all the esteemed panelists who are there in this session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. CIFFI is powered by Spark, the Student Council of DME Media School. Journalism at DME is the official newsletter of DME Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out the campus. It is a student centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME TV is the official YouTube channel of DME where you can find the playlist related to all sessions, lecture series, film festival, and conferences. Let me take a moment here to introduce the moderator and the co-moderator of the session, Ms. Kamini Sabherwal and Dr. Vikrant Kishore. The moderator of the session is Ms. Kamini Sabherwal. Ms. Kamini is an Australian-Indian bilingual actor who has trained and worked both in Australia and India. Some of her work are City of Melton advertisement main lead, short film on Fly My lead actress, Fine Magazine, France, cover and center spread. The House of Wellness, Channel 7, solo feature. She was born and brought up in India. Ms. Kamini has traveled vastly and believes that it has contributed a lot in shaping her personality. She is an economic graduate and postgraduate in HR. Ms. Kamini is also painter and a model. The co-moderator of the session is Dr. Vikrant Kishore. Dr. Vikrant Kishore is a filmmaker and an academician at Deakin University. Currently, Dr. Kishore has been capturing stories of cultural flows and its impact of India, diaspora, and Australia. He has authored and edited books on Indian cinema, celebrity culture, and integral culture heritage. He has been a jury member in various film festivals. He is a member of the Regional Advisory Council of the Victorian Multicultural Commission. Let me introduce our esteemed panelists. Ms. Shyama Sasidharan is a performing artist and yoga teacher. She holds a master's degree in performing arts from India and specializes in Kuchipudi dance. She was a popular TV host and has also hosted high profile political, corporate, and film awards nights. As a host, she had toured internationally covering GCC countries and the US. She has toured all major cities in India with her dance company and has participated in popular dance festivals. Ms. Shyama conducts regular dance classes in Melbourne through her venture Prakalpa Samskruti and is a yoga consultant for Ayur Clinic. She has worked at various educational institutions, including the University of Melbourne, where she introduced the grammar and language of Indian classical dance to students. She is in working on setting up a television platform which would offer opportunities for South Asian artists. Ms. Krish Mallika Bhadra is born and raised in New Delhi, India. She has done BTech in biotechnology from Kolkata, West Bengal, India, MTech in biomedical MTech in biomedical engineering from NIT Rourkela, Odisha, India, and PhD in nanobiotechnology from Swinburne University, Melbourne, with a 100% academic scholarship. She has been settled in Melbourne since 2013. She is currently working in V-Line Creative Career. Dr. Bhadra is trained in Indian contemporary dance from under the tutelage, tu- tutelage of Mrs. Tanushri Shankar. She is a founder of Ananda Dance Group, Melbourne. She has been actively performing in Melbourne and Sydney since 2017. She is a founder and main host of two Melbourne-based podcast channels, Durdasha Bangla for Bengali NRIs and Coconut Chats for a global audience for difficult topics in a South Asian community. Ms. Natasha Baweja is the founder of Australia's premier dance company, NB Dance. The company specializes in modern Bollywood dance and was launched in 2013. Miss Natasha has been performing, choreographing, and teaching more than 15 years and has personally worked with over 20 Bollywood celebrities. NB Dance has also been featured on Australia's TV channel 10 and performed at various AFL matches. Kunal Sachdeva is an Indian singer who started his journey in music at the age of 5. He used to perform in all school events. However, it wasn't until early 2015 that he began to take singing more seriously and started training at a professional level. In terms of his style of singing, he considered himself to be a versatile singer. Kunal has performed at a plethora of events and stage shows in Melbourne, ranging from both small local events to big time events involving Bollywood singers and celebrities. Kunal Sachdeva sets his foot in Bollywood in October 2018 when his first song titled Mere Khuda Love is God was released under the banner of T Series, followed by three more songs released under the T Series and Z Music Company banner. I once again welcome all the panelists. Now over to you, Miss Kamini.
Thank you so much for the lovely introductions. And before I start, a big congratulations to Amrish ji and Vikrant for the spectacular show that you've put up. So before I welcome all our panelists to share their views, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of this land where I reside. I've already been introduced. A very, very warm welcome to all the panelists. I was absolutely amazed to hear about all your lovely achievements. So big congratulations. And I'm sure all our audience will have heaps to learn from your work and your journey today. Bollywood dance and music has been an integral part of our culture for so many years. And I think there'd be no one who's grown up in India or is connected to India in any way and will not find a deep connection to Bollywood dance and music. And so I think today's panel is going to be one that I'm really, really looking forward to. I think our panelists are people who have played a significant role in bringing that culture, that significant part of our culture with Bollywood dance and music to Australia and to the world. And today we would really like to spend time exploring with our esteemed panel the challenges and the opportunities as they exist, as they have experienced in making a mark and becoming recognized within this field. So we will go through a set of questions today with our panelists, but I think what we'd really like is if we could go and talk to our panelists one by one, and if they could please begin by sharing an overview of their work, their journey, what's their main body of work, and let's just get started with that. So could I please request Natasha to get us started? If you have anything else to add.
Sure, thanks, Kamini. Firstly, a big hello to everybody who's dialed in today, and a special thanks to the organizers for bringing this topic to the community, which is indeed an exciting one, an important one, which I think sometimes gets left out with the artists and the dancers in the community. So thank you for bringing this to the forefront. Now, in terms of my background, I've had NB Dance in Australia for the last 8 years, but I did have presence in New Zealand prior to that for a couple of years. And I think, Chris, you're from New Zealand as well, so we may have a connection there that we need to explore. In terms of the body of the work, so my company has two service arms. One is a dance school, which provides Bollywood dance classes for 3 locations currently in Melbourne. And we also have a team of professional dancers who provide entertainment and choreography services for special occasions, displays at festivals, supporting international artists when they, tour Australia, and personally working with them, for dance performances and acts as well. Kunal and I have also worked together in one of his performances for the Indian Film Festival, so memories, surface. In terms of I guess, going back to thinking about my experience for what I've done in the last couple of years, I think there's been a lot of involvement for Bollywood dance for sure in the community. And as I think about, how it's reached the heights that it has now compared to even when I first started 10 years back, that it looks very different. There wasn't as much awareness, I would say, in terms of what Bollywood music and dance feels like, smells like, talks like, now compared to, what it used to be like. And I think digital has a big part to play in that as well. I think we are the players for sure to influence, the community in terms of creating that education around what is, the dance and music sort of like bring to the table, but also places like Netflix and social media has played a huge part in actually creating that reach for the broader audience globally as well. So yeah, absolutely. I think an exciting topic and lots to share. I don't know whether you had a question for me to talk through straight away, or are we just doing intros? I might have missed that one.
Yeah. No, look, we do have a question and then we can move on to our other esteemed panelists. So I think the question that we had was, do you see a demand for Indian Bollywood-based performances, art forms in Australia? What's your view on the demand that exists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bollywood performance demand 100% yes, because I think the purpose and intent behind when Bollywood was potentially created in the years to end has evolved as well. From it's no longer just what you watch in movies and it's entertainment on screen, but especially in Australia, the way they've adapted it is it's quite different. They've taken this as team building workshops, for example, activities for corporates, an activity for friends and family to immerse themselves in and get involved in for celebrations as way of like consolidating their spirits and performances. Or even, for example, a way to get a culture experience, not in a very intimidating way, but in a very fun way for people who are not from this background. And lastly, I would think that, it is, again, a part of versatile physical movement introduction for kids who are, first learning movement, as well as even seniors that, we've gone to aged care, for example, and the seniors are really adapting Bollywood dance as way of introducing movement into their body of active living. So I think it's got such a versatile purpose now that the demand has been peaking. It is still peaking and will continue to peak. And I don't think it's going to be shy of any decline anytime soon.
Well, that's interesting, Natasha. I did want to explore that a little bit more. So do you think it's not limited only to people who have an Asian connection now and it's really expanded?
Yeah, absolutely not at all. I think, especially for dance, what they say, there's no limit to language, right? Dance has no language. I think music and dance is a way to connect communities. It's, create that connection no matter what background you hold. And for sure, this is not one just to stay for the South Asian community, but definitely an extension to everybody else.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. That was very interesting, and what a great journey. Maybe we'll move on to Chris. And Chris, similar introduction and your views on the demand that exists, please.
Thanks, Kamini. First of all, a big thank you and greetings of the day to everyone on the panel and Dr. Saxena and Dr. Kishore as well for having us here. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here and speak about our journeys in person. So I started learning Indian contemporary dance under the tutelage of Mrs. Tanushree Shankar. For those of you not aware, Mrs. Tanushree Shankar happens to be this daughter-in-law of late Uday Shankar, and they are the famous Shankar family. So I started learning when I was in class 10 in Delhi, and that journey started from there. But in Melbourne, I started my group in 2017. Performing extensively ever since then. The journey has been positive, negative, positive in a way that we have had a lot of space to improvise because our kind of choreographies are based mainly on instrumental tracks. So we've had a lot of scope to pull in a lot of story, give it a lot of meaning, and then let the audience decipher what we're trying to say through our acts. That is what I believe in, that there should be this story behind every performance we are putting up on stage as a group. I wouldn't say it as a negative, but slight downside to it is not a lot of people are aware of what actually Indian contemporary dance form is. So when I started off, I had a bit of explaining to do to the people that this is what it actually is. People got confused. Oh, is it like ballet or is it like Zumba? So because these are like the heart set form of dances we all are aware of, right? But then when we started slowly performing and I started giving them, this is what we do, this is all about feeling the music, etc., etc. So now I would say people are a lot more open. A lot of people know us by the performances we have done, just by the sheer performances we have done. And your question about chances of art forms in today's times, right? If I've got your question correctly, Kamini. Yes, there are chances, because when I started performing in Melbourne, I was surprised by the sheer number of events the city has. Like Melbourne has events all through the year. You just have to reach out to people, give them your intention, give them your performances. And if you perform with all of your heart, there's a lot of scope, and the scope is just not limited to Southeast Asia, because as Natasha said, right, dance has no language. So you just put up a beautiful performance. Yes, you have to give it your 200%. Everybody's open and receptive to a wonderful performance, a thought out performance, which they're happy to look up on the stage. So there's a lot of scope. Yes, since I come from a dance form which is relatively not that heard of, so we still have a long way to go compared to Bollywood dance form or any other classical dance form. We are working on that continuously as we speak, but there's a lot of scope. People are very open and loving here. There are ample chances. It's just that we have to give our 200, 300%, because I believe that every performance that I put up on stage needs to have a meaning. People should relate with it. And that's it. There is a lot of scope. I was very thankful when we started performing, and we are still going well. Even when we had pandemic and COVID came in, we had come on to virtual performances, but it was a learning experience in its own self, Kamini, honestly. So I would say that there's a lot of chance here in every Indian dance form, and we are not limited to any group or barrier or any class or creed. It's open as we think it is.
Fantastic, Chris. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. All right, maybe I'll hand it over to Kunal now.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much to Mr. Ambrish and Dr. Vikrant for having me, for including me in this discussion with such an elite panel of people who've accomplished so much. For me, I will just say that I guess I discovered my singing potential at a very early age. And this was when I was still living in India, and my parents and a lot of my teachers at school really encouraged me to sing openly in front of everyone at school assemblies. And I guess that's something that I took by heart, and I began to sing a lot more in classrooms, because there was a lot of demand for me personally to sing in front of everyone and sing in school assemblies. So, but for many years, I guess I took singing as more of a hobby rather than something that I really want to get into more as in professionally. I didn't start learning at a more professional level until 6 years ago. And that is when I discovered the potential to probably transition into a full-time singer, or at least, you know, have this as an alternative as well, along with my actual job. So I think as my journey began in music professionally, I began to train with an actual guru. I began performing at so many different local shows. And that's where the journey began for me as a singer, because it started as small steps, climbing the small steps of the ladder. Because I used to perform in front of 15, 20 people at first, and then slowly that began that transition to performing in front of hundreds of thousands of people in big stadiums, in big theaters as well. And I got to the point where I started getting calls from so many organizers to tell me that we want you to perform 1 or 2 songs. It got to the point where they also, if they had someone coming over from India, you know, an actor or a singer, then they would say that, yeah, there is a chance for you to get in, you know, you have a slot for 1 or 2 songs. And that just provided more and more exposure for me. And it then got to the point where I was contacted by some producers from India, some music producers, saying they want to record a few songs with me. And that was something that just absolutely blew my mind, that, wow, I guess I've made some sort of an impact. I've made it. And then the journey began where I actually started some recordings. So at this point, 4 of my songs have already come out, 2 with T-Series, two with Z Music Company, and there's a few others that are still in the pipeline. So I think the journey has only just begun, and for me, it's going to keep going on. And I am just incredibly proud that I've been able to share this unique gift with everyone, just like everyone else has. And in terms of the demand, I would definitely say that, yeah, there is a demand for Bollywood music and dance in Australia. And there's so many different reasons. I think it also primarily has to do with the influence of the South Asian diaspora that lives here. And because, you know, we're such a diverse community, we mix and engage with so many different people from so many different races and ethnicities, and we share so many different things. So I think this unique art form has definitely been widely shared across so many different diasporas as well. And I think the South Asian community is largely responsible for this. So I think, you know, they have so many friends who they share this with them, and they're so intrigued by it that they want to explore more and more. And I think this is something that will continue to grow. I think we've experienced unbelievable growth in just the last couple of years compared to what it was, say, just 5-10 years ago, and what it is today. The growth has been remarkable. But just one point I would like to mention, for local performers, I think the demand should be more. I think the demand, understandably, the demand is more for Bollywood, actual Bollywood superstars and singers and artists. And I completely understand, but I think the level of support that local performers get should be a bit more, should be increased. Because, you know, yeah, the organizers, they help them by giving them exposure. But I think the public maybe should care more. There should be more demand from the side of the public, because they spend bigger amounts for the celebrities, for the superstars, but not so much for the local performers. And I think the organizers also give into that. They don't promote the local artists as much as they probably can. So I think there is huge potential for that as well. I would just want to say that in terms of demand for local performers, it can be more than it is. But definitely looking at the whole picture, the bigger picture, then yeah, I would agree that the demand has increased so much from before, and I think it will only continue to grow.
Thanks, Kunal. That was very, very inspiring. And I think you've shared a really balanced view on the demand for local talent as well. Thank you for sharing your views with us. Shyama, I'm absolutely loving the plants behind you. And I saw a little visitor as well, which is very cute. I've got 2 kids myself, and they are not at home, which is why it's so quiet. Otherwise, nobody would have been able to hear me. All right, over to you, Shyama. Love to hear about your journey and your thoughts as well on demand.
Thank you so much, Kamini, and it's a pleasure to be on this platform set by Ambrishji, and thank you, Vikrantji, for being the co-host for the event. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the Wurundjeri land that I reside on, and pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. My journey is as an Indian classical dancer who specializes in Kuchipudi, and I moved to Melbourne about 7 years back. Now, with the background in Indian classical dancing, with a master's degree in Indian classical dance, I was more excited about creating a space where I would be known as an artist, a performing artist. And unlike Bollywood, where you do a single number and you're happy with it, or you do a series of 5-minute, 10-minute series, Indian classical dance demands a little more time. They want their slot and space, and I terribly wanted that 1.5 hours for myself to do a recital or a concert on a full-fledged basis, which was not very feasible as I moved into Melbourne. And then I realized that the one thing that connected me to the local audience here was Bollywood, because that's that's what an Indian dancer is thought about to be. So Bollywood definitely acted as a bridge for me to connect with my audience. And in terms of my classes and work, I'm a full-time dancer and dance teacher, along with my career in yoga and as a yoga therapist. Yoga, of course, having been a little more popularized, there was a lot of knowledge about yoga. There was always interest about what kind of yoga I do. And being from the land of yoga, we understand that, our practices differ, and it's probably the commercial term that we are focused on. However, talking about dance and the commercial string, as I understand dance, we look at it as two different parts, especially Indian classical dance. One comes from the Margi tradition, which came into as the classical dance forms of India. And the other one, which is Desi dance, which is definitely what Bollywood comprises of to a majority, which is the folk dances. So yes, traditions and the things that emerge from the soil of a land, the culture of a land is very essential. So all of us come from various parts of India, and we all have a different various folk instinct, and people definitely do connect to any kind of folk dances. So this is where I started, exploring further from my classical base to reconnect to this land and to understand and adapt and get rid of the taboo that Indian classical dance, especially classically trained dancer, moving into Bollywood segment. Here, Bollywood was a savior for me because I was able to explore that part. Nevertheless, on the television background and the opportunities that we have here, well, having had a stint with Indian mainstream media, having worked for a regional channel, and having hosted shows where I have, about a lakh of audience in front of me. And then moving into a land where I get the opportunity to host a show where there's about 500 or 1,000 people was like, meh. Well, for me, it was a shock, and especially because I had traveled with my art to various other countries, and I've seen the kind of Indian population that there is in the rest of the world, especially in the USA and in the GCC. Well, considering that Australia is still a very young and new market, but I can see the tremendous change that has happened over the last 5 years since I've moved in. So from being a sleepy town that would be all closed by 8 p.m., there's been a lot of change, and there's definitely been acceptance, and the way we connect to local media, local audience does definitely matter as well. Because as the population of Indians grow within Melbourne and in Australia, we see that there's a lot of interest in Indian classical dancing or Indian dancing as such, and Indian culture. So there is a lot of acceptance, but I think we need to make ourselves really clear as to where we are heading and what we want, and where do we as Indians, as a group, as a culture, want to see ourselves in the space where we call our home now, and then decide as to where we want to steer ourselves. But definitely, I think with the music, the peppy numbers, and the easy to grasp steps and everything, I think Bollywood is making a big tremendous tornado in terms of catching up with local culture. I think that's what I would have to say as a starting statement.
Thank you so much, Shyama. That was incredible. What a journey. And thank you for sharing that with us. I actually resonate a lot of your thoughts. I was on a panel earlier and I was saying exactly this, that yes, we've come a long way, but there's so much more that we can do. So fantastic. Thank you. All right. I will hand over to Vikrant now for the next question.
Thanks, guys. You shared really interesting insights. And I would definitely want you all to share some links of your work with the audience here in the chat box. It will be really good for them to get an understanding if we are not able to share anything via the share screen thing. Then if you can, or if you want to share, then you're more than welcome. And I think audience are really interested to know more about that. And Shyama, like coming back onto that, and like a few years back, we created, Kirti and I, my wife and I, we both created this interesting course for Melbourne University on Bollywood dance. And then Shyama came in and taught the Bollywood dance for the students. So we created this particular course called Bollywood and Rasa Theory for Melbourne University. And actually, if Shyama was there, so 6 weeks, they would learn about Indian cinema, and they would understand how song and dance is used in the films. And then next 6 weeks, they would actually get tutored by Shyama as to how to employ song and dance sequences of Bollywood and create their own dance. So Shyama, why don't you tell a bit about that?
Oh, thank you, Vikrantji. Yes, that was an amazing experience. Thanks to Vikrantji and Kirti, who facilitated that move. And as an artist, it was a great platform for me, because being connected to a university like University of Melbourne, the VCA, was indeed a great opportunity. And in terms of reaching out to students who are already practicing dance over there, so it came in as a breadth subject, this one, and it was something that anyone from any stream could opt for. So I might have ended up with somebody who had 2 left feet, but it was about dancing, and it was about, how do you connect with Bollywood? This is where I said Bollywood, was the bridge between this and that, because I had a personal thing about, my Indian classical dance, how do I step into the, Bollywood thing? And then, I came to peace with myself, understanding that both the Margi and the Desi has to be combined together to bring in a fusion, what we understand as Bollywood. And the more you learn about Indian classical dance through our text, the more you are able to accept that all this is a part of Indian classical dance. And, there is really no definition, or, and there is no mark that actually separates between Indian classical dance, which is fundamentally probably about 100 years old, because that is when, people started setting it in rules. But the experience of teaching, from teaching a panel of a multicultural group where I had students from all over the world, and they all came from different backgrounds. So the fun was that we started off getting them to break the ice, trying and performing something that they are used to. So I opted for the Margi tradition from where they come from. So I might have had somebody from Indonesia doing something that is from their culture, someone from Punjab doing a Punjabi number, and then I had so various countries. So once we understood that, then we were able to understand that, okay, the movement exploration is this and this. And then we started drawing and understanding what happens within the space, and how your movement influences the space around you, or how the space around you influences your movements. So that was something that, we could work on, and that actually helped to break the ice. And the best thing was Bollywood is never set in stone. So as far as you're able to, shake a leg and move to the music, you're done with it. So I think everyone enjoyed that experience, and especially because we had to put up a performance after we actually had 9 weeks, Vikrantji, and the 10th week I got to get them to perform. So that was a really great thing, because everyone was looking forward to it. And I was working under pressure because I had 10 weeks to teach somebody who had absolutely no idea about dancing, to getting them to perform on stage. So it was exciting, super exciting, because I'm more used to training people into a professional dance area, while this was more of a fun project, but they all took it seriously because it was a part of their academics, and they had to come up with, their own steps at one point. I would put in a few steps for, from my side, and then I'd ask them to do something that, they work on. They'd come back to me after they watched a couple of series of Bollywood dancing, and then they could say, okay, I like this step a lot. This is something that I can relate to. So that was an amazing experience. And I think such doors will open up in future as well. So there is a lot of potential in terms of Indian classical dancers, or Indian dance, especially Bollywood dancing, reaching out to the community with projects like these. Because I believe that, reaching out with this kind of a thing, and students from different streams joining this kind of a course, the main thing, that the reason why they had to join was because they felt that this was also something to do with relaxation, and something that would, help them. So I asked, why didn't you join the yoga thing that was available? So they were like, okay, yoga was more of the serious type, and this meant, letting your hair loose, having some fun, and then scoring some points over there as well. So yes, that's exactly what it is. Mental well-being also depends on how healthy and how happy you are inside. And why not do something that makes you happy? Like I did notice that Natasha was also talking about how it influenced, or it enabled movement in people from old age cares. And yes, I've had similar experiences where I've reached out to aged cares and performed for them, and they totally love it. They can relate to it. They see it's not as serious as classical dancing, whichever form of classical dancing it is. It's not, and it's something that people can have fun to. So yes, I think this is the new norm in most globally.
Yeah, thanks, Shyama. That was really interesting. And I'm sure there are many universities which are still toying with ideas of including Bollywood, and I'm trying to push, as much as Bollywood studies within the university as well. And I want to come to, ask next question to Natasha. And Natasha has not only, she runs a kind of a dance school, but you have also been involved with Bollywood, films and helped them with crews and, or choreographing some of the dance pieces in the films. So can you talk a bit about your experience of, when film crews come here and what they expect from, the local support and local choreographer, and what has been your experience in that way?
Yeah, sure. So, talking about filming experience, I have a bit of background in Bollywood because I have some relatives in Bollywood. So, I have been around filming crews a fair bit, from an early age before I moved, obviously, from India. So, my dad's brother and my cousin are actually in the Bollywood industry. So, we've kind of been around these people a fair bit. So, for us, it's like it's an everyday thing, or at least it used to feel like it. My experience here, however, has been quite interesting to say the least. So and I think I'll touch on something what Kunal was saying, when I think superstars or celebrities as they call it, when they come around here, they don't exactly pay a lot of importance to the local artists. Yes, we've 100% supported them. We worked with them in terms of, we performed with Neha Kakkar, we performed with Shah Rukh Khan and, taught them steps, for example. So there's an instance of appreciation, no doubt, because, they're excited about the fact collaborating with local talent, but it's not necessarily the focus point for them. For them, it's obviously they have an agenda when they arrive in a country like Australia for their tours. Their chances of potentially local artists working tirelessly to prepare what the task might be, and at the very last minute, it could just be pulled because the show, for example, isn't going by what they had thought, for example, or the audience isn't responding to some of the things that they may have thought would work. So I think we can become drop-offs very quickly, irrespective of the hard work that some of the local artists may have put together in terms of supporting these international crews or celebrities, so to speak, which is quite unfortunate, but it happens a lot. Same as what Kunal was touching on before.
Yeah, true. And I've seen that and I've experienced this quite a lot, that the kind of amount of attention the international or Bollywood stars get, and that too for those kind of 2 minutes, people wait for hours and hours, and then at the end, most of them return back disappointed. Instead, the local performers should be, not only treated better, but paid well as well, because the kind of money they spend on these kind of Bollywood stars. And lots of times, these are the Bollywood stars which we end up getting are the ones who have finished their career, and then they are finding these kind of meet and greet things to sustain themselves. Anyway, we can have another discussion.
In saying that, though, I think sometimes this, perception of, local artists will be, dropped off at a, drop of a hat sort of a thing. It ends up becoming something that is created by the organizers here and not so much the artists themselves as well. We've had, I would say an extensive experience where we've had people like John Abraham, we've had people like Neha Kakkar, I'll speak about her again, where they've actually given tribute to the local artists, where there's performances happening. And I still remember, and this is one of my positive experiences from working with and performing for celebrities, John was quite clear. There was meet and greet happening and our company was performing and there was photography happening, and he stopped all of the activity because his ask of the audience was that there are artists on the floor and they've got to give them the time that they've prepared for the performance. He watched the entire performance and at the end even exchanged words of appreciation with us. And I think that is, huge respect to people like him. So I think it does sometimes becomes, I think it's curated by the organizers to a certain extent as well, because I think, they've brought them here from India, and their focus is to ensure the audience that's paid the tickets, they get their time with the celebrity and they go by their agenda separately to potentially what they've organized for performance artists from Australia.
Yeah, true. Thanks for that, Natasha. And I'll go on to Chris and then Kunal, and then we'll open for Q&A session. And I see lots of questions. So Chris, you are a podcaster. And as a podcaster, I've seen you that you have raised issues around dance and music and lots of things. So can you talk about your experience as a podcaster?
So when I started this, one thing I was clear about, that I'm not going to shy down from speaking about topics that we may think that are uncomfortable to talk about. But over the time, I've realized that many people actually connect with us when we start addressing the elephant in the room. Out of that, we've also addressed the issue of, having dance and music in your lives. One aspect of that is when I spoke with a lady who is a trained Bharatanatyam dancer from Pakistan. She uses Bharatanatyam to address social issues in Pakistan and overseas globally, right? And the whole point around that is the entire topic of arts as something to communicate your issues, as something to highlight something that is going wrong in your society is so topical, because dance is a free-flowing language, right? Everyone connects through it at some point or the other. When I talk about contemporary form of dance, how we connect it to Bollywood is we use the instrumental tracks and I try to put a story into it, not necessarily aligning the way the song was portrayed originally, but we try to have a story in it and we try to make sure the audience connects. It's the same way our podcasts go also. We try to make sure that the audience is understanding what we are talking about, and the audience is also kind of trying to take away something from what we are discussing in our 30-minute, 40-minute episode, right? We've talked about so many things like, for example, abortion rights or marital rapes, etc., and also the importance of music and dance in our lives. So my main ambition is to ensure that anybody who's listening to my conversation with the guest takes away something which is topical and it's not just superficial. Because what I have realized when I moved out of India is when I look back into the country, there are so many things that are not right. And somebody needs to talk about them. Obviously, I cannot change things overnight. Nobody can, right? But I believe that the moment we start talking about it is we set the wheel rolling. And it's the same thing if you're using performing arts to address change. Performing arts is all about evolution. We are constantly evolving in our own art forms. This is something I also keep telling my group, that whenever we are putting up a performance, it is open for evolution. We cannot be stagnant in one place and keep believing that we will be doing the same thing for 100 years moving from now on. You've learned the art, but you also have to be open to the idea and concept of evolving in your art. Try different arts. This is something our teacher told us when we were learning contemporary, and I think this is one positive aspect out of many, that in my dance form, we are able to adapt into another dance forms. We have opened an space for evolution, and I try to create that same window when I'm talking to my guests on our podcast, when I'm releasing those episodes, because we also realize that these are such hard topics. We have a very niche audience. Not a lot of people have the appetite to ingest brutal honesty on their faces, right? A lot of people have come back with us with the harshest of critiques and feedbacks, but that hasn't deterred us, or that hasn't kind of, dogged us down from saying that, oh, you're not doing this anymore, that's it, chuck it, we are moving down. So we are going on. But as you said, Vikrant, I have realized open communication is the need of the hour, be it any topic you want. Like today, we are having this communication about dance and music and right. So unless you speak out, and let's be honest, you have to be honest somewhere. You have to be open to your own purpose and mission. Otherwise, what is the point? What is the even point of having so many people on a panel if we can't be true to who we are, if we can't be true to our roots? So that is one thing that I think has helped me in our podcast, is I wanted it to be as raw as possible, because we have been brushing everything under the carpet for like ages, I think, really. So we have to be open in our communications. And obviously, as we all mentioned, using music or arts or any form of martial arts or performing arts to address a social cause or even mental health is absolutely important. Like for me, I forget everything when I'm rehearsing or when I'm on the stage. That's like a total focus area for me. So all my worries take a backseat, and it helps you, right? It helps you bring in that confidence. It helps you bring in that health that you might be not having in other areas of life. So it's important, and speaking up is always positive to me. I am not going to sit back just because two people haven't liked what I've produced. And same goes for my art. Like we have used Bollywood music to present to an audience who understood what we were trying to portray on stage. It's just how you do it. It's just how you open your art and how you present it to the broader audience. I firmly believe that if you have a story and a mission, everybody is bound to understand what you're trying to converse to them. There is no one who cannot say that I didn't understand what you did, because it's just about interpretation and letting yourself be when you are up there. That's how I see it, Vikrant, if that answers your question.
Yeah, sorry, my Zoom decided to update itself automatically. That happens. And everything has been cleared from my area, in the sense I can't see any of the chats now. So probably the Q&A chat questions, Kamini, you have to ask. But I'll ask one question to Kunal, and then we can go on to the Q&A session. So Kunal, you have moved on to working in India, and you have worked with T-Series and Z Music. So tell us a bit about your experience of working between the two countries, and how it has been. Was it an easy journey for you to break through that kind of barrier, to be accepted by a music company and get to do something? And how has it impacted or helped you in terms of your own growth as a musician?
So when I started training professionally, I felt that I was starting from scratch. Like I had to forget everything that I thought I knew about singing, and this was just a whole new world for me when I began singing professionally. And it certainly hasn't been a journey without its challenges, because let's be honest, as much as I would like to tell myself otherwise, the main market is in India. The main market is in India. Primarily the audience is in India as well. Of course, we have a huge diaspora everywhere in the world now, including here. But of course, you have 1 billion people back at home with so much access. I think India has digitalized so much in the last 5-10 years. And I think everyone has so much access now. There's social media. There's so many different forms of media nowadays. So I think for me, because I live outside of India, it was a massive hurdle in itself. Trying to establish my name and footing in this industry was not at all easy, because first thing was the lack of opportunities that were afforded to me at first, because I knew I had to establish my name by performing at local events. That was the only, that was really the only form of growth that I thought that I had for myself, that if I could just get an opportunity to perform at any event in front of however many people, that's good enough for me, because this is a chance for me to get some exposure, establish my name going forward. Another hurdle was, because I wanted to learn classical music, Indian classical music, I struggled with the thought of finding a competent guru as well that actually teaches classical music. So that took me a while as well. Where do I find someone that can actually teach me the intricacies of classical music? Because classical music is so vast and deep that no matter how much you think you're never actually going to get to the bottom of it. It's like an ocean, classical music. And that's an ocean that I really wanted to dive into. Fortunately for me, I did get the opportunity to train with a classical music teacher with whom I still train today. He's been extremely valuable to me in my growth as a singer. In terms of getting to establish myself in Bollywood, I think I owe it to the support of my parents, as well as the support of so many of my friends and family members, and you yourself, Vikrantji, have been extremely supportive of me as well, that I was eventually able to get the opportunity to have a couple of recordings released as well through companies such as T-Series and Z Music, because it wasn't at all easy. I mean, for the fact that just a couple of years ago, I wasn't even given opportunities to sing. And this point that Natasha mentioned about working so hard, training, working so hard, preparing so much just for one performance, and then all of a sudden you find out that it's not happening. I mean, nothing for an artist, nothing can be a bigger disappointment than that. than getting to know that your performance has been cancelled last minute. And that's something that I myself have been a victim of. To go from that to go to recording so many of my own independent songs, I think there's not a more proud feeling for me, because as I mentioned, music and singing is my passion, and it always will be, regardless of what I do in life. I think this is something that will always be with me. And, you know, I think the onus is on me to make sure that I don't fall, because no matter how many opportunities I get, it's up to me to make sure that I take full advantage of the opportunities that I get to establish my name further going forward. So I think definitely the challenges, the struggles have helped have helped shape me into the person that I am today. And no doubt there's going to be more and more bigger challenges going forward. But that's, you know, that's it's about how much courage I have to face those challenges head on.
Yeah.
If I know that, if I understand that, then I'm pretty sure I can survive, because it is a very cutthroat industry, let's be honest. And it's not easy to get in it's not easy to knock on the door. You have to pretty much kick it down. So I know that if I have that sort of mentality, then definitely I can go even further.
Thanks, Kunal. Kamini, you'll have to help me with the Q&A because my chat's got all erased. So what we'll do is that Kamini will just put a couple of questions to you, and you need to be short, swift, and to the point. Okay, so we can try and take as many questions in that way because we have 15 more minutes in hand. So Kamini, over to you.
Thanks, Vikrant. So we've got some really interesting questions in the chat. And I think the way I'd like to run it is I'll ask the question and I'll invite the panel members to choose if they've got a view to share instead of picking you and saying, why don't you answer this, if that's all right. And hopefully we can cover everyone's views as we go along the questions. So the first question that we've got is, do you think that dance and music play an important role in the narrating of the story of movies, and how?
I'm happy to share my view if you like.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think absolutely yes, because I usually say, you know, dance is expression of the heart, and, you know, it carries so much of emotion in terms of what you display. So no doubt it is a way for you to be able to portray and narrate stories. And I think Chris will probably have a really good opinion on this as well, because, you know, as she's mentioned in her performances, she's always looking to tell a story through that performance as well. So yeah, absolutely, yes.
Thanks, Natasha. Kamini, I totally agree with the question, whoso has put it. You know, music and dance allows you to be yourself, open your heart, interpret and improvise as you feel fit, right? For me, that's the way I've been performing for so many years. If you have a story in mind, it's on your heart and your improvisation, how you act upon the track, and you place yourself in the track and allow the audience to decipher the story from yourself. So in short, 100% yes to that question. You can narrate very important stories through your act performances, whether be it music or dance.
Shyama, Kunal, do you have anything to add?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think there have been movies that doesn't have much of dance, but then a BGM or background score is so essential for a track to, you know, fall in place, and it is something that allows you to, you know, get in sync with the movie and the elements of the movie. Nevertheless, it all depends on, you know, the cultural background that we all come from, and today's context being Bollywood and India. I think for us, dance and music is an integral part of our society, and we've been, you know, we're so used to having a dance and music event at most of our celebration. It's not that, you know, it's just a Bollywood thing. It is indeed a part of our culture. So it depends on what kind of movie you're talking about, and then you have the answer there.
Thank you, Shyama.
Yeah, pretty much echo the sentiments of everyone. Definitely music does add to the allure of the theme of the film. And of course, in Bollywood movies, because song and dance is such an important part of the film, I think definitely it adds to it. It gives it so much color, so much flavor, so much texture. That really makes Bollywood movies unique from other forms of cinema, such as Hollywood, which are more story oriented. Although I do think Bollywood is getting more story oriented now as well, because there's a lot more movies coming out now that do not really have song and dance as they used to. But at the same time, I think this is something that we cannot abandon as well. Like, yes, we can be progressive, but at the same time, we need to hold on to such a valuable part of what makes Bollywood movies so unique is the songs and the dancing. And that's the one thing that also really attracts people. That's why there's such a demand for among the international community as well for the Bollywood for this type of art form, is primarily due to the singing and dancing. It's not so much that they pay attention to the story, it's more so the songs and the dancing, and that's something that really attracts them. So I think, yeah, it's definitely a very important part, and it's something that we need to hold dear to ourselves, and make sure that this kind of art form never dies. So yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll just add one point to that. And this is in mainstream Bollywood cinema, song and dance are used in two different ways. One is which is part of the narrative, song and dance, where it is part of a narrative, where it enhances a particular storyline and goes on. So a romantic track, or a kind of a brother in arms kind of a track, or things that enhances, or a song, a wedding song and dance kind of thing. And then second one is as a separate entity from the narrative, like a dream sequence. Suddenly they are in a village and then they go on to, that is about touristic, gaze kind of a thing, or an item number just to, titillate, or sexualized imagery and all. So these are the two things which in fact in my book I talk in detail about. So I thought I'll just focus on that a bit.
Thanks, Vikrant. That was a really, really good insight. I personally will be very disappointed if Bollywood stops putting a lot of music. Yeah, that's what makes it unique. All right, so we'll move to the next question. I think, Chris, you did touch upon this really well previously, but I'd love to hear everyone else's views as well. And the question is around, how does dance affect our society? And I think we've all touched upon it at different points.
I'll brief myself so that other people can have their chances better. So I mentioned previously that I spoke with a guest who used a dance form to, for societal issues. But in my opinion, dance is like the ear and eye of a society, because you can see and hear things which is going on within the societal structures, right? A society is just various rungs of people made by the people. You need something which is evolving, which is dynamic, to let the change seep in. And that is how I perceive dance. And dance affects our society in positive ways, because we can only bring in change, we can reflect the change, and we can make ourselves visible with change by our movements. So yes, dance does affect our society in positive ways more than the negative ones. I'll let the other panel members take the question.
I'm happy to go next. I think bringing in light, probably, especially last 2 years with everything that's happened and the impacts from COVID, what I felt personally, for example, having online dance classes, it made a huge impact to the society, because it was providing for them to be able to have social connections, through, even though it's a computer screen, but, like such as today, being able to connect with other parts of the world from people who are dialed in. And secondly, just, the sheer value that dance brings to society from a mental health well-being perspective has been humongous for the last 2 years. We've had students, basically join in and tell us that they've looked forward to the dance classes out of their entire day, because that's made them feel like they have a sense of belonging still in a challenging and difficult space where they're not able to step outside, see people, and do what they normally do as a normal life. So it's almost given them a sense of normality, even though it's been virtual. But more or less for the last 2 years, specifically because of COVID impacts, it's brought in a lot of mental and mental well-being benefits, I would say.
Yeah, and I just want to add to Natasha's thing and Chris's thing. In fact, this year at Deakin, we started a new project called Loneliness in the South Asian Diaspora. And we received a PhD topic on dancing away loneliness and how Bollywood films with song and dance sequences help lots of South Asians to, in a way to battle their loneliness during COVID-19. So that was an interesting thing which happened. Anyway, over to the panelists.
Well, I believe that dance has always had a responsibility, and dancers have always, through the evolution of dance, we've noticed that dance has not only been used as an entertainment source. Like if you look into eras where there were empires and kings, dance was one of the ways that artists could bring forth what the ruler wasn't doing right. So it was an indirect way of still approaching a concern or a cause, saying that look, this is what needs to be amended in the system. So dance has always done that, and I believe Chris said about evolution, and you just have to keep evolving, and your dance definitely needs to have a purpose. And as long as you have a purpose, it does affect the society, whether it is to provide entertainment and provide solace to somebody who's feeling upset or sad, to also putting in place. It's like a 1,000 posters in action. So it's if you're just putting up a poster on a social message via a poster or a video, the impact stays there. But now if you're going to do a song and dance sequence, depending on what the theme is, it speaks so much more, and it impacts the mind so much more than just a mere poster. So yes, it does affect our society if you use it as a tool. Yes.
Thank you, Shyama. Well said. Kunal, did you want to add on something?
I'm not an expert on dance, so I can't really say much. I think you have 3 people for that. So
all right, thanks.
Yeah, I think we have got time for one more question, Kamini. So.
All right, Vikrant, I was going to ask you. Sorry, I was just going to say, when I moved to Melbourne, I found I used to go to all these gatherings where I'd not met anyone, but suddenly some music would start and dancing would start and everybody would bond. So I think especially overseas, Indians really bond over the music and dance of Bollywood. So it definitely, I see that here. All right, so this is the last question. And I'm going to take a question which covers both dance and music. So the question is, do you think classical dance and music is on the decline in Bollywood? I think it's a really good question. Over to the panelists.
No, definitely not. I think classical dance and music, it depends on what you want to call as Indian classical dance. What we perceive as the Indian classical dance now is what has been formed over the last 100 years. Okay, if you are able to expand your horizon, go back into your actual texts, you'll actually see that Bollywood is not really separate from Indian classical dance. It's just that so many of the vocabulary, what we learn as Indian classical dance now is actually a product of colonization, and what we are doing now is just that. Okay, so we have cut down so much of movement vocabulary from Indian classical dance just to give it that image which the colonial rule has imposed upon us. So if you really want to break free from those shackles, you need to explore your text and understand that Bollywood isn't so very different from what our roots are. So just follow your route, go explore your movements, just don't be confined. And classical dance is not declining. So it is our perception of what classical dance is. Is it what evolved over the last 100 years? No. So go forth. When we understand more, we understand that Bollywood is no different. Be open to the change, evolve.
And I think from my perspective, it really depends on what is that source of media in capacity of this conversation, right? If you have a look at Bollywood movies in isolation, are we seeing Indian classical dances come less and less? Probably yes, because Bollywood's taken over. But if you then look at live stage performances, or if you take a look at, just open up Instagram, for example, the amount of sheer talent and the videos that you come across with the Indian classical dance and music being projected, it's far beyond what you see in movies. So I think it really depends on what is that source of truth that you're abiding by, and your measure of whether it's a decline or on the incline. I would almost say it's on the incline.
To go back to what Vikrant said, that there are 2 things if you have to analyze this question. One is, what purpose is the music and the dance being used for, and the other is what are we trying to portray, right? Like, for example, and also what is the demand in the audience. I'd like to take the name of the series that came out, Bandish Bandits. Amazing series, music was fabulous, right? If you, how many people have seen it? I've actually heard people saying that, oh, we just got bored. They were just singing on something we couldn't really understand. However, that was the core of classical music, and the way they have portrayed the music. You need to have actual training in classical music so that you can foray into other art forms. So it also depends on demand. What do we seek from the company, from the industry at large? I don't think anything is on the incline or decline. It just is, as an audience, what do I want to see? They will only cater to what we want to seek from them. So, and I also believe that we need core training before we can venture out to any other form of dance. What classical dance form does is they train your body in a certain way that you are adaptive to other forms of dance. So does contemporary. We have been taught in a way that we can easily morph into other dance forms. So that core training is necessary, and the demand and supply needs to be looked into. But other than that, everything should be fine. These are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we'll have to wrap up the session now, Kamini.
Indeed, an interesting discussion. Here I request Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, to give the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Muskan. Thank you, panel, for deliberations on the topic, creating and performing Bollywood music and dance in Australia. The session was enlightening as you all shared your first-hand experience with the students. Music and dance is everyone's first choice. Very often students ask about the scope, challenges, opportunities they have abroad when it comes to music and dance. Bollywood is the lucrative and challenging. It has attraction which mesmerizes everyone, and that is why youth is attracted towards that. But the road is not that straight. Lots of challenges and struggles. There are lots of ups and downs, but as you people have mentioned, it is important to be creative and original. Grab everyone single opportunity and success will be yours. So thanks to all of you once again for this insightful session. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, Natasha, Kunal, Kamini, and Shyama for joining us. It was a really pleasure having you all here.
Yeah.